Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Xerath Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Alright, so I am so excited that we are back in business with Grand Arena. Before we start with any of the matchup stuff though, I just wanted to take some time to tell you guys, check out our Discord. It's linked at the bottom of the video description. Check out the counter sheet. That's also a great resource for Grand Arena. And we have a podcast now. We have 3 episodes. That's also linked in the video description. So please check it out. So this match is hugely intimidating for me, at least going into it was, just because my opponent was part of the Maw guild. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it right. I think it's a mix between the Mighty Chlorians and the Wallet Warriors, but this opponent is also been the top of the guild contributions for all the different guild activities that you can do throughout the week. He's been on the top of that list for a really long time, and one of my guild members noticed that, so it's pretty interesting. My opponent had way more GP than I did, like 500k more GP, and if you look at the total gear and mods, I was super outgunned. My opponent had a lot of things going for them. The one thing I did have over them was that I had more Gear 13 tunes, which actually is super relevant in Grand Arena. The other important stat is that my Darth Revan was faster than my opponent's Darth Revan, and even though my Bastila was a little slower, you can kind of work around that. And moving into this match, I really wasn't sure what to expect. I had a bunch of different new teams to mess around with in terms of offense, and I put a lot of new teams on defense, and I'll show you guys all that in a little bit. But the first thing that I noticed, of course the first thing that you always look for, is did your opponent put Darth Revan down in the front, which usually is where Darth Revan should be if you're going to place him on defense, and the answer was no, my opponent did not put them on defense. In fact, a lot of the defenses were not necessarily that intimidating in the front, so I was expecting a really hefty back line. I've done this matchup in particular, the Jedi Training Rey versus KRU, quite a bit, and if you know what I've been talking about lately, if you've been following that at all, I've been really working on using Jedi Training Rey as a counter, or a potential counter at least, to Geonosians. And even though Geonosians are it's not an ideal match for her, I think that Traya is kind of overloaded in terms of where she's needed now. So I decided in this matchup, however, that based off of what the front line was, I would have enough teams that could handle Geonosians in the back. And so Jedi Training Rey has always been pretty good for me at taking out First Order, and that's what I decided to do here. Just wanted to make sure that we started off the round strong. So what we're trying to do here should be relatively obvious by now if you've been following my videos, but if not, the goal is to just take out the squishiest guys first and leave the rest. Jedi Training Rey is uniquely qualified to control another team, and KRU is no exception to that. Actually, KRU is probably the most susceptible to her mind tricks, which is actually kind of funny lore-wise. But the goal is to take out First Order Officer, then Executioner, because he's relatively easy because of all of the exposes that you can land with your team, and then First Order Stormtrooper, and then either KRU or Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren can be difficult because every time you land a debuff or a buff on him, he gains 5 health and 5 protection, and his defense keeps going up as you keep hitting him. So it can take a little bit of time, but that's actually going to work out for your favor, just because they give you enough time to heal the rest of your squad. So that was a relatively easy match. I was really happy. seeing Phoenix actually really kind of shocked me. My opponent had a huge, broad, deep roster, and Phoenix can be used as an offensive team, but I was really surprised at their choice of using that as a defensive team, to the point that I don't ever see Phoenix, and I didn't really know what squad to take against them. And so I did what I've kind of done for a lot of matches at this point, and I took the First Order squad just because they're incredibly versatile. They have a lot of different levels of playability and flexibility. They can do a lot of damage, they can heal, they can dispel, and in terms of sheer flexibility, I think that they're a really good squad. Now, you can see that Zeb, who has his Zeta, almost took out the First Order Stormtrooper. So I'm actually not sure this is like the #1 choice as far as teams to take Phoenix down, but multi-Zeta Phoenix, I mean, it's just hard to know what to take against them. You don't want to waste Traya, you don't want to waste Jedi Knight Revan, or, you know, Darth Revan even, but you don't want to send in, you know, your own Phoenix or something. You want to make sure that you're going to get full banners. So I think First Order was not a bad choice. I think that, I don't know, maybe there was a better choice. If you have a better idea, let me know. Keep in mind that I don't have Wampa available here, and that I probably wouldn't have risked just Wampa on his own anyways, just because if he gets dazed, he can get completely smashed by Phoenix, contrary to what Reddit seems to think a lot of times. So First Order here, they're starting to kind of ratchet it in. Once you get down to the final 2 tanks, you can kind of slow things down, or at least try to, and try to get back to full strength or health and protection, and that's really just what I'm doing here. It was a surprisingly difficult match in terms of Phoenix hitting Stormtrooper a little bit harder than I expected, but in general, I mean, if I had lost Phoenix, I'm just relieved that I didn't lose to Phoenix, frankly, because I doubt that anyone would have let me forget that. So I was really happy to see my opponent's back row. It was non-scary in a lot of ways. Ewoks are pretty much 60 banner bait at this point, unless you do something sneaky, which my opponent hadn't done, in terms of like Paplu having insane speed on him. And so I thought that I was probably in luck. I still had Darth Revan, I still had Jedi Knight Revan, and the back zone that I couldn't see, if they, whatever they had in the back, I would be able to handle with those 2 teams. So I decided to try the new clones. My opponent had Shock T at gear like 8 and completely Zeta free clones, so it was probably not the scariest squad you can face. But this is my very first time facing the totally reworked clones, and I did not know what to expect. So I took Commander Luke, which, as you'll see, is actually on offense now, and I'm trying that out. He was on defense the entire last season, but I'm trying this mostly because Solo has guilted me and into it. So I was excited to try it out, and then I realized that my Captain Han had fallen behind to the point that he had gotten protection instead of Commander Luke. So that was a huge oversight on my part. I'm either going to have to remod Captain Han or give him more gear, which is not my favorite thought, but one way or another, the new clones folded like a sack of something I probably won't say on this channel. So I'm excited that I was able to take them out, a little bit sad at the same time because I wanted to see what they could do. I mean, it's fascinating to see Rex get his own like kind of mini Annihilate, and I'm really excited for that team, honestly, just as an aside. That's going to be really fun. So another thing I hadn't really seen in this Grand Arena Championship format much was Padme on defense, and I've actually seen it a lot on a lot of different people's matches. Early on, I don't know how everyone just like kind of got together and decided to put Padme on defense now, because I think she's an incredible offensive weapon, but people are doing it, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to take against it until I realized that even if my opponent had Geonosians in the back zone, that I could just use either Darth Revan or Jedi Knight Revan to take them out. So that made it really easy for me. I took Traya against this squad, and my opponent's gear was pretty good. Their mods were pretty good. This is kind of a sub. No, I won't say sub. It's a non-standard Padme squad in the sense that it doesn't have C-3PO, which Barriss kind of just replaces that anyways, but then we have Grandmaster Yoda instead of Jedi Knight Anakin, so I'm not sure what I think of that squad, to be honest, but if you take Traya, you take Thrawn, you really kind of make Padme sad, because Padme relies on a lot of things that Traya just kind of ignores, and a lot of the things that Padme likes to do, Traya just kind of cancels. So you have Isolate, you have Fracture with Thrawn, and those two things really just kind of make Padme sad. Padme also really likes to have people counter a lot. She likes to counter herself a lot. Like, she likes to have the squad that she's in have counter, and that really just plays into Traya's hands, just because of the same principle that everyone observes when you see Geonosians against Traya, that every out of activation attack takes down 35% of your health, which is just, I don't know, it's not ideal for Padme. So honestly, this is a really good matchup for Traya. Traya is becoming more and more of a staple in Grand Arena, and honestly, the demand for her is incredible. If we see her on defense, it's going to be surprising, just because she takes care of so many different teams. She covers a lot of them. I've actually considered trying to get a couple of these guys up to Gear 13 just so that they can kind of keep up with some of these teams. Like Gear 13 Night Sisters, for instance, kind of eat Traya's lunch, but I think Gear 13 Traya is probably going to be fine against Gear 13 Night Sisters, for instance. And I have seen videos where Traya even beats General Grievous if you have the right gear on Traya. So we'll see. I mean, relics might change everything, but at this point, I think that Traya is probably the most in-demand counter in the game right now, to be honest. Not that I'm dishonest with you in other times, but my opponent had a Geonosian squad in the back with Nest, which I hadn't seen before. I'd kind of heard rumors of, but I wasn't really sure how to deal with that. So while I was mentally processing this, I decided to go with my staple of Veers and the Troopers versus Ewoks, and I was a little disappointed because my opponent had not placed Bounty Hunters on defense, which is something I have been really working on lately. I've gotten my Stark up to kind of light speed, and I want to be able to counter Jango squads with the Troopers. So a small spoiler alert, I do get my chance in my next episode. So if you want to see how a 320 speed Stark does against a I think it's like a 317 speed Bosk, it's pretty interesting in my opinion. So check out that video once it comes out. But that Ewok team was a relatively easy win for me, and really the only challenge that I have left is this Geonosian squad. But my opponent had not placed Darth Revan on defense, and so I decided to get my understrength win here as well. Nest can be annoying, but not really that annoying for Darth Revan. So I decided to just see how things went, and right away, I don't really know if the best move was to do lightning. I think it was, frankly, because it got the taunt onto Malik, and then all the bugs who are hitting Malik and getting a crit on him are going to just instantly freeze from fear. And as you can see, the lightning from Bastila just like evaporated the whole squad. And then I was kind of curious. My opponent's nest was actually a slow, tenacious nest, which you don't see too often, and my characters are all pretty quick, or at least Revan and Bastila are pretty quick. So I actually wasn't sure. We didn't really have any turn meter reducing mechanics, so she would eventually get a turn, I thought, but I wasn't really sure what to expect here. And she actually got a couple good hits in, and I really wasn't sure. And then HK got 150k, so he just got bored, I guess. I really wish that other characters would get more bored of Nest, because I get bored of her, but I still have to just sit there for like 5 minutes and stun her over and over again, generally in most matchups. But it's fun every once in a while to have HK do the dirty work, I guess. I'm also excited for you, my wonderful listeners, that you did not have to watch me kill Nest for 5 minutes. I had to kill her for like 1 minute, and that's a win for everyone. And so moving on to the next match, there wasn't really a whole lot for Jedi Revan to face, and so I went against this Qi'ra squad. I decided that it was actually going to be a good opportunity for me to be able to get full banners here, well, more than full, hopefully, just because this team does almost no damage. It's just kind of a timeout team, and ideally you want to take Jedi Revan against something a little more equal in strength, but if you find yourself in a circumstance where you can use Jedi Revan against a team like this, where you don't really have much threat of timing out just because the power disparity is so big, then honestly taking Bastila as lead is an even better choice, because you don't have to worry about the assisting your way to full protection, because these guys do just enough damage that all of my toons would probably have ended up not having full protection at the end unless they were able to assist toward the end. So the goal here is obviously to get as many banners as possible, and these guys don't really have enough offensive output to threaten the bonus protection from Bastila's lead. And so not only did I get an undersized win here, I also was able to just finish stress-free as quickly as I wanted to with 61 banners. And maybe I could have just gone without like Jolie in there as well, most likely. Honestly, the undersized squad thing is still kind of new to me. I know that some people are really min-maxing that at this point, and I'm getting there, but it's just something that I have been paying attention to it, so we'll see what comes of it. Commander Luke is an especially good opportunity for that. So in my final match, it's Carth Old Republic, and it's the team that I put all the zetas onto Phoenix for, and I have actually made a lot of progress with my Phoenix team in terms of, I think I've got it down. I think I can beat Old Republic consistently now with them. But I had Padme, and I just wanted to see what Padme could do against this Old Republic team. I debated for a while going under strength and just working on that really big feat that we have to do, but instead I wasn't sure what to expect. I don't know. It was my first match. I'm like, my opponent saved so much for offense. I did not want to risk some kind of embarrassing loss just because I wanted to get fancy and crazy with an understrength squad. I'd already gotten the small feat earlier in the match, and so I just decided to go full strength, which, as you're watching, I mean, that was probably a mistake. I could have gone under strength, but as I said, I'm happy enough. 60 banners, that's good enough for anyone. And That actually put me in a place I have very rarely been, where I was only 2 points short of what I consider to be a perfect score. Perfect being 60 banners each match. I realize that you can get more than that, but we don't really ever see that. And a perfect match is generally just going to be 60. And just to be clear, I'm talking about like the overall match. We do see individual matches where we have more than 60 banners, but we don't see entire 8 match attacks where we get more than 60. Usually. Maybe your friends are cooler than my friends, but I don't ever see it from anyone. So my defenses, my opponent attacked a few times and then just kind of stopped, and I'm convinced that they had the roster to full clear me, and probably really convincingly. But I think that the early loss to Night Sisters there probably just sealed the deal, in terms of they knew that they weren't able to win, so why go through the annoying task of clearing the rest of my squads. And one thing I was really interested in was that my clones got a defensive win. And, you know, they're not done yet by any means, but they are gear 11 on Shock T, and the rest of the clones are gear 12 with a couple zetas, but they're not done yet. I'm actually really excited to see what my next zetas are going to do for that team, and see if I want to get them to gear 13. I think they're probably going to be our next meta. Don't hold me to that. Well, actually you can, because I think that it's a pretty good guess at this point. I mean, the other guess would be something weird like Mace Jedi or something like that. So anyways, my back zone remained untouched, and my opponent, if they end up watching this, gets to see what waited behind door 2. So that's good. All mysteries revealed, and I was honestly just really excited to be able to get a win against such an amazing roster. And you know, my opponent had reached the top of one of the leaderboards on the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.gg site. So pretty cool to be able to beat such a noble personage. And anyways, I think I'm about done. So thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Zareth prevails.